everyone. We're so excited to see everybody in the chambers, and it is going to be a great day. We don't even have public comment. I don't even have to ask if there's public comment, but I'm calling the meeting to order for the special meeting of City Council. Today's date's Tuesday, October 29th, 2024. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor West.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Neal. Councilmember Durio.
Present.
Councilmember Getz. Present. Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Councilmember Felshaw. Present. And Councilmember Samuel.
Present.
Thank you.
Now's the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. You may make comments on the executive session item.
I have none, Mayor.
The executive session considers matters related to discuss or deliberate economic development negotiations in accordance with Section 551.087 of the Government Code, to wit, specifically Project Riverfront. We are now recessed into executive session. City Council, today's date's Tuesday, October 29th, 2024. Today's invocation will be given by Reverend Kirkland P. Hall, pastor, Mount Gilead Missionary Baptist Church. If everyone would please silence your cell phones, and if you so choose, please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you all for allowing me to give this invocation. Thank you, Mayor West, for this opportunity. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for each and every one of these servants that are here in this room. We ask right now that you would fall fresh upon this room. Let there be a meeting of peace. Let there be a meeting of progress. And we thank you for what you've done for the city of Beaumont. But then ultimately in faith, we thank you for what you will do in the city of Beaumont. We thank you for these leaders. We thank you for these servants. Now we ask that you would be in this meeting and give us a progressive meeting that will move forward with your peace. We thank you in your name. Amen. United States.
May I have roll call, please?
Mayor West.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Neal.
Present.
Councilmember Durio.
Present.
Councilmember Getz.
Present.
Councilmember Turner.
Present.
Councilmember Felshaw.
Present.
And Councilmember Samuel.
Here.
Thank you.
We have a communications update now from the City of Beaumont Communication Department.
Good evening, everyone. In tonight's city announcements, get ready to fill your plates during Restaurant Week, November 4th through the 11th, featuring over 60 of our local businesses. From Tex-Mex to sushi and everything in between, our Southeast Texas restaurants are ready to serve you up, and they're offering some great deals. This year, you can get a digital passport that allows you to get points and win prizes and coupons as you dine out at your favorite eateries. One lucky winner will take home the ultimate foodie gift basket valued at over $300, filled with gift cards and items from participating restaurants. Check out the Beaumont Convention and Visitors Bureau website for further details and download the free digital passport starting November 4th. Halloween is this Thursday, and the Beaumont Recreation Department is helping you celebrate with its annual Haunted House. It's open Halloween night, October 31st from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Sterling Pruitt Activity Center. Come dressed up and prepared to be spooked. There are a few more opportunities to get in on our 13 Nights of Halloween at the Jefferson Theater. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m., you can catch The Thing 4K Remastered. Then on Halloween, join us for a double feature. Just one ticket gets you two movies. At 7 p.m., there's a showing of Halloween, and then at 8:45, settle in for Trick or Treat. Tickets can be purchased ahead of time at the Beaumont Civic Center box office, online, or at the door. Also coming to the Jefferson, a night of live music with Larry, Steve, and Rudy, the Gatlin Brothers. The Grammy Award-winning trio have dazzled audiences for more than 65 years. They have 7 #1 singles, 32 top 40 records, 22 studio albums, and 5 BMI Millionaire Awards. You can catch them live November 1st at 7 p.m. at the Jefferson. Tickets start at $29 and can be purchased at Ticketmaster or in person at the Beaumont Civic Center box office. Don't forget to snag your tickets for Beaumont's annual State of the City event.
Hey everybody, I'm your Beaumont team captain, Mayor Roy West, inviting you to come out to our annual State of the City event, Thursday, November 21st, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Beaumont Civic Center. We're gonna have a big citywide pep rally, reviewing all our big plays from this past year, including all our wins, couple of losses, and recoveries. It's going to be a fantastic event as we invite you to catch the vision for the future of Beaumont. Click on the link or contact the Beaumont Chamber to get your tickets today. We hope to see you there.
No, you're all super impressed. Who knew that our mayor had such acting skills, right?
Hey everybody.
That was enough of it.
As he mentioned, it's coming up Thursday, November 21st from 11 to 1 at the Beaumont Civic Center. It's going to be a big citywide pep rally, music, food, fun, as we take a look back at the things we've accomplished this year and what's in the year ahead. So check out the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce website and snag your tickets because you don't want to miss it. Finally, a reminder, city offices will be closed on Monday, November 11th in honor of Veterans Day. I want to thank all those who have served or are currently serving our country. And that's all we have for this week's announcements.
All right, thank you. And for those that are here for the presentation and you'd like to leave, now's the time to do so. And thank you for being here. And now we're going to move into public comments. Now's the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. You may make public comments on the consent agenda, regular agenda items 1 through 7, 10 and 11, or any other topic. Items 8 and 9 have already been heard in public hearing. Therefore, citizens cannot speak on this item. The city clerk will call your name when it's your time to speak. When you approach the podium, please say your address, city, and state. You will have 3 minutes for public comments. The green light will come on when you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up. Please be reminded that myself and the council cannot respond whenever you're making comments, but someone from the city, from our office, will contact you.
Alto Watson.
It's been a while. First of all, I'd like to start to thank the Beaumont Police Department. My car was stolen from my house over on 10th and Gladys a couple of weeks ago. And the Beaumont Police Department, in conjunction with Shreveport Police, found my car in Bossier City, Louisiana. And so I got the car back. Unfortunately, it appears the guy put gasoline in the diesel engine, and that's going to be a hassle. But I noticed on the agenda here, I have another issue, but I wanted to point out that you're approving a resolution for the annual contract to provide towing service for fleet management, code enforcement, and police department. It's kind of like I got robbed twice. My car got stolen, so it gets towed in Bossier City, Louisiana to an impound yard. So it cost me over $500 to get a car out of an impound yard that doesn't work. There are cities in Louisiana, New Orleans particularly, that if your car is stolen, the city pays for the tow and the impound. And there are a lot of people here that would not be able to afford to get their car out of an impound yard once it's stolen. I mean, they're out of luck. And so rather than they won't be able to pay it. And so the tow people need to be paid, and they certainly need their impound. But if y'all could look into potentially aiding crime victims with a towed vehicle that was stolen, not just parked illegally, I think that'd be something good to do. the reason I'm here is the same thing I've been talking about for a couple of years. It appears that the Galveston Wharves has unanimously rejected the Battleship Texas to be located in Galveston. And I keep trying to say this. It's the greatest idea for Beaumont there's ever going to be. I see that you have a hotel potentially on the agenda. What better thing to have if a hotel with the Battleship Texas. The Battleship Texas is 2.5 times as big as the San Jacinto building. It's monstrous. It would be beautiful here. You could see it from the highway. I have taken the time and have provided the council before with statistics, but I just want to read to you from the USS Alabama that's in Mobile, a town of 190,000 people. We have 120,000 people here. There are 5 million people live in Alabama. 3 million people live in Mississippi. That's the size of Houston. So this is what they say. And on their website, more than 17 million visitors have visited the USS Alabama since 1965, with a $1 billion impact to the state of Alabama. That's an average of 288,000 people a year. And it's gone up. It's not, in 65 they had less people. So do something. Bring the Battleship Texas to Beaumont, Texas, and get an actual tourist attraction in downtown Beaumont.
Thank you.
Mary Williams.
Now we're going to go eat dinner.
Good evening. Okay, Mayor and City Council, please listen and please listen good, because we're really sick and tired of these trains in the Million neighborhood just blasting these horns for apparently some type of rift between the city. We are tired of these horns just blasting all night long, all day long. It makes no sense. We should not be hostages in our own homes and in our city because of a rift between the city and the Federal Train Commission, whatever it's called. I don't even care right now. It makes no sense. Now, I know that if each and every one of y'all lived around those trains and hear those trains every night, and I know Mike Getz, you live by them, I get that. Think about that. You would get really irritated, and it's beyond irritated right now. I'm frustrated. We've brought this to City Council before. We brought it to the news before. And it makes no sense as taxpayers that we are having to deal with these trains. It's ridiculous, y'all. And please don't tell me it's with a budget or something like that. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I'm not buying it. Me being a disabled veteran in this United States of America, we should not have to go through this every day. The trains are just blaring. And I'm tired of the crossbars. That ain't working. That's not going to work with me. I'm sorry. There's got to be a resolution, and it's got to come quick, because people are going to start really, really getting angry. And I'm one of them. I'm really angry, and it makes no sense. And I hate to complain, but golly, it's pathetic. Number 2, my trash bin has been dumped and plotted and scattered all over my driveway for the last month. We've called to the city. We've said something about it. It's hard as a disabled veteran to get down and pick up that trash can all the time. If you have a disability, you would understand. Not all disabilities are visible. So sometimes I don't walk with a cane or anything, but it's hard for me to get down and get up. And those trash cans aren't the most, they're flimsy, some of them. And I would just appreciate if the garbage men would not drop our trash cans after they finish dumping it into the truck. It would make it a lot easier for us. We pay for that. We are tax-paying citizens. We shouldn't have to live like this, y'all. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Terry Roy.
Good evening, I want to speak to agenda item number 6. I'm not sure if that pertains to businesses or if it pertains to citizens. If it pertains to citizens, I think that's something that should be tabled for a while, because I can guarantee you that maybe 90% of people in Beaumont don't know that that could even happen to them. And we have enough black eyes in our city. We don't need another black eye with that going on. I think it's something that needs to be spread more, because I just found out about it yesterday, and I'm usually pretty up on a lot of things. So if that's something that y'all thinking about passing, I don't think it's going to be a good thing for Beaumont. So if y'all could at least table it for a while and spread the word more on it, it would help out a lot of people, because we have a lot of disadvantaged people, a lot of poor people, and a lot of people that just can't pay their bills on time. And to threaten with putting a lien on their property, that's not good. I think it's time we be more proactive in how we run the city and get that done. At least let people know about it. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Albert Harrison.
Mayor, City Council, other city employees, and other concerned citizens that are present. I, first of all, would like to thank whoever informed the sanitation department about trash cans, because the last time I was here, I complained about the issue that I couldn't get a second trash can. Since I was able to get a second trash can, I now receive on my water bill a charge of $20, which is called preparation and delivery. Now, I find it very, very difficult for me to pay a $20 fee to an individual that is already receiving my tax bill dollars in payment by the city. As far as I'm concerned, this is like a double jeopardy type issue, as far as I'm concerned. Now, first of all, when I say thank you for the trash cans, this was a brand new trash can that was delivered to me. So what preparation does a brand new trash can have to have? This individual is being paid by the city to deliver trash cans. Why should a citizen be charged for delivery of a trash can, especially a second one, when you're going to charge me every month for a trash can? My other issue is that I did talk about the issue on the last council meeting pertaining to the project on Long Street. Indication that the repairs that was done there was permanent. My question to you all is considered as permanent. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Melissa Bradford.
Melissa Bradford, 1085 Washington, D.C. Of course, my complaint is the same. It's about these corrupt judges and lawyers that's embezzled my funds of $85,000. The funds was awarded to me and my mortgage company to repair my damaged home from a broken water pipe way from 2018. And they illegally put my money in a court registry until they can figure out a way to pretty much award the money to Liens and Parsons. And as I've said many times, these Liens and Parsons attorneys are not only mutual acquaintances of Judge Baylor Wortham, they're also his top campaign donors. As a matter of fact, someone sent me something on YouTube that they saw where these same lawyers had did some type of commercial campaigning for this judge. So, I mean, we're not surprised that he's trying to award them my money. And they only had my case for 1 month. So how does that entitle someone to $55,000 of someone money for 1 month of making a few phone calls? That's it. And then I'll go look online, try to do some research to see if anybody else having these problems. I mean, there's tons of complaints about these same lawyers who's just pretty much doing all these predatory actions among the citizens of Beaumont. One former client even said they had a fight with the lawyer's dad, Michael Lindsay. I filed a criminal complaint against these criminals last month in Harris County. Since one of the suspects is for Harris County, they would have jurisdiction. So somehow, Chad Long, who was the sergeant that investigated 2 years ago when I filed this claim initially, claimed he spoke to me on June 4th and supposedly explained to me that my case is a civil matter. And I've been sending him emails trying to rectify the matter. He refuses to respond to my emails, my phone calls. So I ended up filing a complaint against him with Attorney Affairs because he's trying to protect these defendants and he's interfering in a criminal investigation. My home still hadn't been repaired. My insurance company, they're trying to get involved. I mean, my mortgage company, because their name is also on that check that Judge Baylor Wortham continues to withhold in the court registry. We called my insurance company, the defendants, Texas Farmers, and informed them, look, we're the new mortgage lender. Y'all need to put our names on that check. So they're not able to investigate and pursue with criminal charges against Farmers because they won't correct the check, the name on the check. And then when we called them the last time in April, they hung up in our faces. And it was well documented, so that's just gonna help the criminal complaint. And as you can see here, I was awarded $54,000 for my contents, $50,000 for the dwelling. I haven't got any of that money.
Thank you,
They
ma'am.
basically stole it.
And Barbara Wilson.
Good afternoon. I love the new lights on Calder. They're beautiful. Lights up, Michelle. Okay, so I'm Barbara Wilson for my business, 1096 Calder, Beaumont, Texas. I own the BAW Resale. I've been in business here in Beaumont for over 11 years. I recently bought the old Hadley's building on Calder downtown about 7 years ago. I've had events in Beaumont. We had a downtown Beaumont Junk Days, and they had over 10,000 people come to Beaumont, according to Main Street. So I say that to say I have over 17,000 followers on my Facebook page and get several people visiting the shop that ask for different places to go to eat, looking for other places to shop. Let's see. 7 years. Okay, so recently I just sold one of my buildings in the middle. So I'm going to lose one of my parking spaces. My real parking space in those photos you'll see is in the back of my building. Well, across from that parking space is where some other place is, the Salvation Army. And unfortunately, I've been there 7 years, my customers refuse to park back there. So they either park in the parking lot across the street and interrupt my neighbors. They park on the street, on the main street. They call me on the phone and say, where can we park? Because they don't want to park on that side. So I showed you several pictures. We have homeless people sleeping on the street over there now. And because no one makes them move, last night we had 4 cars. We've been having 2, escalated to 3. Last night we had 4 cars of people sleeping there on the parking lot. I had to write down some notes. I was just sharing the fact that my dream of owning a big building has turned into a nightmare. I'm selling one of my buildings. I have them all up for sale. If I can sell them, I'm going to sell them all because I've really had enough of this dealing with the homeless over there. If you look on my side of the property, I have no trash, no homeless sit there. They don't park there because I make a move. I mean, I've called code enforcement. I've talked with them. One of those pictures shows a lady who was living on the sidewalk who accumulated all this hoarding stuff. And you'll see the pictures where they had several police cars, several city officials, and then a big dump truck to remove her stuff. And it should have never gotten to that point. Now she just moved across the street and she's created another hoarding space. She has a mattress on the street as of today. And so it just continues and continues to, to escalate and nothing's being done. Yesterday, I was told by code enforcement that I needed to call the police. This is not a police matter. I mean, it's just as simple for some other place to go out there just like I do and say, move, don't sit here. I thought about it this morning. Maybe we could put a no parking on that street so that maybe at least the people that are living on that street won't park there. But that's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you for that. No more public comments. At this point, is there a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda excluding item N. I'd ask that it be voted on separately for the purpose of recusal.
Councilman Samuel seconded that. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda minus agenda item N, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Now we can have the reading of consent agenda N.
Yes, Mayor. Council consider resolution approving the annual contract of grounds maintenance for Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, and it comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for approval of item N?
So move for approval. Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item N in the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving item N, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
One abstention.
All right, one abstention. All right. The motion is approved. Now we're going to move into the regular agenda, and I'm going to make a little shift here and go with agenda item number 10 first.
Okay, Mayor. Council consider resolution authorizing the city manager to enter an agreement with the company selected by City Council to conduct a market study, perform planning and design services, determine estimated costs, and develop a business and financing plan related to the possible development of a hotel on property owned by the city. And it comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
I move to approve the city manager to enter into an agreement with Stonehenge Holdings for a not-to-exceed price of $275,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 10 as read. Motion made by Councilman Neal. Is there any discussion? Councilman Getz?
Should this be labeled not to be owned by the city, but by a nonprofit or some sort of entity? It's not going to actually be owned by the city.
So the hotel property is owned by the city. We own that lot.
Right, the property is, but the hotel.
So the wording is proper.
Never mind. Sorry.
Gotta trust me sometimes.
Thank you. You tricked me.
Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, can you or one of your staff members speak to exactly what we're voting on today, just so there's no misunderstanding in the community?
Okay, I'm going to ask Assistant City Manager Boone to explain that for us.
Yes, sir. So what's proposed today is that to negotiate an agreement to move forward with Stonehenge Holdings LLC. And what is proposed is for this firm to work with the city to conduct additional research and study of the development of a possible hotel on city-owned property. And specifically, the work that we are authorizing here is a feasibility study, an economic impact study, programming of a hotel, preliminary design work, preliminary pro forma operating budget, and a finance plan in order to move forward. So the idea is to, again, partner with this firm who've done similar projects in other locations in Texas, to do this kind of research, bring it back to City Council for further consideration as to whether or not to move forward with the next steps in the development of a hotel on city property.
And with that, we have somebody that had signed up to make a public comment on this agenda item that was overlooked. So I'm going to allow them their 3 minutes at this point.
My apologies, Mayor. Jen Trendbeth? Was it 8? I'm sorry. Do you want her to go ahead and speak, Mayor? My
Go ahead.
apologies.
Since we paused, go ahead.
No, actually, item 8 and 9
Is
have already
that
been heard in public comment.
public hearing. I'm
So no,
sorry. Okay.
it's not available.
Yes. We can continue. I'm sorry.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
This is for the city attorney. Item 8 about the historical marker was heard at planning and
Is
zoning.
that an error?
I believe so. This item 8 was heard at the Historic Landmark Commission meeting, so that's not a meeting where y'all, or where council attends, so.
Then I stand corrected, and she could speak on it either after this item is
Let's go ahead and
concluded.
close this item and then we'll allow it. Any other discussion? Then all those in favor of approving item number 10, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. Yes, and now you may come forward and share on item 8.
All right, well, I'm sorry for the fusion on this. I'm just here today to ask for your support in the application for a historical marker in the Texas Historical Commission's Undertold Markers Program. The Undertold Marker Program was created by the state of Texas to address historical gaps.
I'm sorry, sis, go right ahead.
Okay. Promote diversity of topics and proactively document significant underrepresented subjects or undertold stories. We believe that the Beaumont race riots of 1943 fit this description, and we seek council's support for the application by granting permission to install the marker, if accepted by the Texas Historical Commission, on the grounds of the downtown main library, on the north side of the library between the Julie Rogers Theater and the library steps. In 1943, that was the site of the police station. It was 200 Wall Street at the time, and during the race riots, the rioters overtook the police station and were in an attempt to locate the man who was accused falsely of a crime. Between 2,000 and 4,000 shipyard and refinery workers left their posts and stormed the streets of downtown Beaumont, seeking vigilante justice against a falsely accused attacker. Martial law was ultimately declared on June 16th and was in place until June 20th at 10 a.m. 21 hours passed between the time that the riots began and the time that martial law was declared, and in that time, 4 African-American lives were lost, hundreds of people were wounded, hundreds of homes and businesses burned or were vandalized, and families lost everything that they had worked so hard for. The impact was not just in the African-American community of Beaumont, though, because of the wartime efforts being made in Beaumont. An estimated 200,000 hours of wartime labor were lost as a result of the riots, and surrounding areas felt the impacts. Silsbee, Port Neches, and Orange all had to issue reduction in forces to keep their African-American employees safe at this time because the discord was so great that they were concerned about it boiling over. The true impact in terms of the lost labor hours is somewhat easy to estimate, although not entirely quantifiable. However, the impact on each African American in Southeast Texas is undeniably impossible to quantify. Because this was a significant place, with the police station being a central location during the horrific event, we ask that you grant permission to install the marker to prevent this history from being lost to time. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, may we please have the reading of item number 1?
Thank you, Mayor. Council consider resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 5 to the contract with Callan Marine Limited for the Riverfront Park Restoration Project, and it comes with the recommendation of approval.
Is there a motion for item number 1?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 1. Is there any discussion? Councilman Turner.
Staff, I understand, I see it's a contingency allowance of roughly $1 million. Can you kind of explain the contingency allowance, and with this being a fifth change order, how we are still in line with the contingency?
Yes, sir. Due to the complexity of this project being most of the work's underground and the substantial amount of the work was underwater on the river, and it being unique, $1 million was built in as contingency for unforeseen circumstances that would be uncovered during the project. So this is our 5th change order. Change order 1's a great example of that because we uncovered a lot of creosote pilings. Sorry, I was looking for the word. So there was a lot of those creosote pilings that were buried in the river despite the sonar and the core samples. We didn't find that prior to undertaking the project, so we had to execute a change order for that. Change orders 2 and 3 were $0 change orders that were administrative changes to support the restore funding that ties back to the BP oil spill to make sure that we had the correct language in the contract for that grant. So there was $0 on that. Change order 4 was due to some safety items, installing additional handrail, putting some tide flex valves in the storm sewer outfall. All of the change orders, including this one for the ADA changes, leaves us $665,512.54 of that $1 million contingency fund.
That's great. And my follow-up is, are we still on track to, open Riverfront Park as projected? Do we still kind of know the estimated timeline?
Well, the original projection was September, so we've missed that. The current date that the contractor's given us is the very end of November, but we feel fairly confident we'll have everything open by the end of December.
Yeah, that was one of I knew I asked last time, would it be before January 1st, 2025? I just wanted to make sure we were still
That's
on
what
track.
we're shooting for, is by the end of the year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Bart.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 2?
Consider authorizing the Beaumont Convention and Visitors Bureau to apply for grant monies from the Jefferson County Tourism Commission in the amount of $13,210 for a split advertisement billboard in Mount Bellevue, Texas with the Beaumont CVB. And it comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 2?
So moved to approve. Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 2. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 3, please?
Council, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to increase the amount for purchase and installation of remote fuel level monitors and related control panels for water production generators. And it comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 3?
So move for approval.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 3. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 4, please?
Council, consider resolution authorizing the lease of 5 vehicles with Enterprise FM Trust. And it comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 4?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 4. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 5?
Council, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept maintenance and authorize final payment to East Tex Utility Construction for the Union Pacific Railroad ditch maintenance, which is between Washington Boulevard and Virginia Street project, and it comes with the recommendation of approval.
Is there a motion for item number 5?
Move to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 5. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Councilman Turner?
Can staff or someone inform me, is this the same railroad that we're having issues with in the West End?
It's the same railroad company, it's not the same line, not the same rail line.
Well, just for me, I'm just gonna have a hard time, moving forward and supporting it if we can't kind of get to a solution on what's going on.
Well, we have a solution for the horns on the west end. Unfortunately, it's going to take us time to get there. So we put in the quiet zones over a decade ago, and the plans were approved by Union Pacific. They were approved by the Federal Railroad Administration. We've had inspections over the years that have had minor things for us to correct, and we've done so. Here recently, they came to us in an inspection, the Federal Railroad Administration, and declared that the way they're constructed is insufficient to be a barrier that you can't cross traffic from one side of the road to the other side of the road. So the only way for us to remedy it is to reconstruct the railroad quiet zone intersections like we've already done to 2 intersections on Pinchback and 1 on Coburn. We were always planning to make these improvements, but we were doing them in conjunction with street rehab. So where we're at right now is that Union Pacific is saying the quiet zone is null and void until we make all of those improvements. So rather than go one intersection at a time and have to get approval, we're putting the plan set together for all of the intersections. We're about 60% on those plans today. We'll provide those plans to Union Pacific, get them approved, put them out for bid, and then construct or reconstruct those quiet zones to have monolithic curbs. Until we do so, they're not going to quit honking the horns. So we've got to get through that process. Once we do so, we can get back with Union Pacific and the Federal Railroad Administration, get the inspection, and then they should resume the quiet zone operations.
I think it's important to note that this comes from them having severe, an increase in accidents from people going around the barricades, people taking pictures, graduation pictures on the tracks, essentially just not following their safety regulations. So although I agree that with the frustration, because I can hear them from my house, I understand from a legal standpoint why they have decided that it's no longer feasible for them to do it, for us to do it in stages.
Any other discussion? Councilman Getz, then Councilman Durio.
So now how tall are we making these barricades?
Well, they have to be, according to the regulation, it says they have to be 6 inches in height. So because I don't want to go through this again, and because we may overlay asphalt in the future, we've decided to go with a 10-inch high curb. We're not putting any tapering on it whatsoever. So even if we come back and we lay another 2 inches of asphalt down without milling, we're still going to be within what those regulations are, well within or over what they are.
Great. What kind of timetable do you anticipate for all of this to be done?
I can't really say until I get approval from Union Pacific. So once we get the plans to them and get approval, then it'll be 45 to 60 days to get through the bid process, and then we'll have a construction timeline at that point. But it's hard to say because I don't know how long Union Pacific's going to take to get the review of the plans.
Well, I just want to say that I have written to Congressman Weber and Babin. They have contacted the FRA, and it's really not a rift between the city and the railroad. It is a rift, but it's nothing we can do anything about other than comply.
And this payment is not to Union Pacific that we're talking about today. It's to the contractor that did the ditching work.
For Union Pacific, correct?
For our drainage. Our drainage goes down Union Pacific's right-of-way, and so we had to improve it to fix drainage for our citizens, so.
Councilman Durio.
Yeah, that work that they did, Councilman Turner, behind a lot of folks' houses between Washington and Virginia. I mean, the grass was higher. Well, I was gonna say higher than me, but that's not very high. But it was higher than you. So, and they've been trying for years to get somebody to do something about it, and they finally got somebody to come and cut that down, and it helps with the drainage as well. But also, I want to ask your project. Does it include any additional quiet zones?
No, sir, this is only to address the existing quiet zones.
Do you have any plans to look at any additional quiet zones? I think I've been asking for a minute.
We've looked at them, but we don't have any budgeted plans at this time to extend additional quiet zones.
Okay, I need some more quiet zones.
Councilman Felshaw.
To the city attorney, so we as a city, we acknowledge the fact that there's been an increase in the horn usage, but the reason for that is they're trying to protect our citizens there's more activity
Well,
now.
yeah, so obviously the barricades go down, right? And I think we've all kind of been there. The train takes a long time. Nobody's coming. Somebody will go around them. And then you have a situation where everybody's going around them. You also see those beautiful graduation photos with people taking pictures on the track, laying on the track, thinking on the track, little kids on the track. And so, yeah, they have a general concern as for people do that. They've spent the money to put out the PSAs to ask people not to be on the track, not to go around the barricades. And so this is kind of like their last ditch effort. As our community director mentioned, our public works director mentioned, we were in compliance with quiet zones. We had quiet zones for a very long time. And then they decided to enhance their requirements to make it harder for people to kind of do that, to go around those barricades when the trains are down. And so until such time that we come into compliance with the new regulations, they're saying that our previous quiet zones are void. So it is in an effort for them to reduce those potential accidents and to discourage that potential behavior. But it's a liability for them as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Turner, then Councilman Durio.
And this is just a question for staff. I just still struggle. If they can communicate to tell us we're not in compliance, why can't they communicate on a timeline when our plans can be approved?
So, and I'm just going to jump in real quick. I think it's important because I think we're getting often too deep in the weeds. This particular item is to pay for work that's been done, and not necessarily to kind of address like our quiet zone issue, even though I know that's a big issue for the citizens, but that's not really the posted item. So the approval process through Union Pacific, like Bart said, they haven't even finished the proposal. So it's just like any other government thing. It gets put into a queue and it gets behind all the other cities that are also dealing with the same or similar issues. So once we have it and they assign it to a person, then we can better project what the timeline will be. But we haven't even finished doing our part yet to even pressure them for a timeline. But I think it just needs to be kind of noted that that's kind of outside the scope of what this item is about.
Councilman Durio, are you staying in the scope of item 5 or?
It's something about railroads.
Let's go ahead and have our vote on this. We'll have council member comments later.
Okay.
All right. All in favor of approving item number 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 6?
Council to approve an ordinance allowing the city to place a lien on real property for failure to pay utility bills. And it comes with the recommendation of approval of the ordinance, and the city attorney can add more to this item too, Mayor.
All right.
So if you recall, we brought an item to council to discuss, or finance brought an item to discuss delinquent utility bills. And there was several discussion amongst council as to why a lien hadn't been placed on these properties for delinquent bills. So in order for that to happen, council would need to adopt an ordinance, which we don't have, but pursuant to the utility code, we would need to adopt an ordinance to do that. The ordinance would not apply to individuals who are currently delinquent, and it would not apply to homestead properties. There's also a situation where it technically, in mass unit properties, for example, an apartment complexes where it's all bills paid and the individual has paid their rent. So essentially they paid their water bill, but they haven't paid, but the property owner hasn't paid. There's certain protections for those individuals. There's also some protection for individuals who don't have water listed in their name. It could be listed in the property owner's name. And so they're at rental property, so to speak. So it's not intended to be harmful to citizens, but it does give greater authority to the city in collecting those bills.
All right, is there a motion for item number 6?
Move to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 6. Is there any discussion? Councilman Getz, then Councilman Duria.
So, Madam Attorney, this would allow us to go after some of those commercial accounts prospectively, can't go back retroactively, but prospectively when they're delinquent on their water bills. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Duria?
You asked my question.
All right. All those in favor?
So I would like to quantify that by saying that it does allow for that. However, there are some additional requirements under the utilities code that the city would need to put into place in order for that to effectually happen. For example, in order for you to disconnect services, you have to send out a separate letter within 10 days of disconnection. It has to be properly posted. In order for the lien to go out, you would have to go through a legal process as well. So provided that those things are met, then to quantify it, yes.
So, Mr. City Manager, what can we do to put in place with our Water Customer Service Department those requirements necessary in order for us to be able to make the lien effective?
I think we've identified some things as far as department to do to make those liens effective. Mr. Ellis, can you address those, or you or Cheryl?
Yes, sir. We already have a plan in place. We're just working on the wording of the letter that needs to go out and how we are going to have those hearings, but that's already in the works.
That's great, because I can tell you from personal experience, I have a rental property. I had electrical service started, and I got a letter at my house saying, hey, your electric bill hasn't been paid, because apparently the bill went to the rent house instead of my address. They identified the property owner, me, got it to me, mailing address, saying your account is overdue. Your electric service will be terminated this date. Here's a number you can call where you can pay it right now. Can we ever get to that level of efficiency with our water department?
Yes, sir, I believe so. We're working on that right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Duria?
Just to be for the citizens, because this item only states utility bills, but just want to let them know that's just for city-run utilities.
Yes.
That's not gas or electricity or
Right. So
anything like that.
the public utility says for utility, and it's worded that way for utility bills, because some municipalities do have other utilities that they offer. So we do, for example, water, sewer. But there are some cities that actually do provide, electricity as well. So this ordinance would only be limited to our water.
And this is to help collect on some already delinquent bills.
So it's not retroactive. So this ordinance would only apply moving forward. So if this ordinance was adopted and put into effect today on October 29th, then that means in the next billing cycle, individuals who would become delinquent would be subject to having a lien placed on their property. Again, homestead properties are protected under the Texas Constitution, so it would not protect those. But let's just say you have a vacation home in Beaumont. I don't know, but you could, right? So your vacation home would be subject to this if you had a vacation home here. It's also important to note that anyone who currently has a delinquent bill would not fall under this property. So the city would have to seek other avenues and other ways to collect that money, not through the lien process.
So if we approve this today, and next billing cycle, someone is delinquent, how long would it be before we actually place a lien on their home?
So there is a due process. So let's just start off by saying like someone's delinquent, right? So the billing cycle is about 20 to 30 days. If someone becomes delinquent, they don't pay that first bill. I believe the next time we have to send out that notice before the disconnection notice, right? Because now you get the regular notice and then you get the past due notice. So in the next billing cycle, now we're up to, I don't do good math, so, second billing cycle. 60+ days, you send out that notice of disconnect. Now, the disconnect notice has to be within 10 days of the date we tend to disconnect. We're entering holiday season. You cannot disconnect someone's utilities before a holiday. You can't disconnect it on a Friday when the city is going to be closed on a Monday. There's several rules involved in that. And if someone provides written notice that they want to challenge the bill, which we get a lot of, we have to provide a hearing for that. So we'd have to set aside staff and ability for them to come up and do that bill. So in between that time, again, we're now in the 60-day process, hearing process. There's been no disconnection because they've challenged it. We can be now into the 90-day process just because of the holiday season. They come in, we talk about it. Let's just say that there's no error in the bill and the people, they really do owe us the bill. Now, again, we tell them you have this amount of time to pay. They can establish a payment plan. They can do all these things. Or if they fail to do those things, then we have a solid disconnection date. So after we disconnect and they fail to reconnect and pay, then we follow through with the civil process of filing a lien on the property, provided it doesn't fall into any of those protected statuses.
So they get plenty of warning.
They'll have plenty of time.
Okay, thank you.
And lastly, this can deal with business or industry, huh?
It does.
Okay, thank you.
If they own the property. So if the property is rental property, obviously that kind of gets into a shady area. But if they're the owner of the property and they haven't paid, we can put a lien on the property.
Okay, like a hotel. So thank you.
Yes.
All right.
There's no other discussion. All in favor of approving item number 6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 7, please?
Council consider an amendment to Article 24.09 of the City of Beaumont's Code of Ordinances, and it comes with the recommendation of approval of the ordinance.
Is there a motion for item number 7?
Move to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 7. Is there any discussion?
Question, Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. Have these other property owners been notified that we're voting on this?
Yes, sir, they have. They've been notified by mail, and it was also discussed at the Focus and Vision downtown seminar that we had about a month ago.
Was there any negative feedback?
We received some that wanted to send petition. I encouraged them to come here for the public hearing to speak on it. I didn't see anyone sign up. But we received an email or two in opposition, but we did receive in favor from many business owners along that area. And this is just for properties along Calder Avenue, extending from Main Street, so right here to 11th Street.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Discussions? All in favor of approving item number 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 8?
Council consider resolution supporting a designation for a state historical marker, and it comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 8?
Move to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 8. Is there any discussion?
I'm sorry, Mayor, real quick, who's second? Samuel, thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 9?
Council consider an ordinance amending ordinance number 24-065, a specific use permit to allow a retail shop, administrative office, and art studio within a residential conservation revitalization district for property located at 2398 Laurel Street, and with the following conditions. 1, it is the responsibility of the property owner to consistently monitor customer parking and mitigate traffic issues that may arise. 2, a parking agreement shall be arranged with the parking lot owner west of 2398 Laurel, and a copy be provided to the city engineering department. And 3, any installed lighting be directional and not adversely affect the neighboring properties. And it comes with the recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion for item number 9?
Move to approve with conditions.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 9. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 9, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please take us into the public hearing?
Yes, Mayor. Council to conduct a public hearing to receive comments related to a grant application and contract with the Federal Transit Administration to receive operating assistance funds for the Beaumont ZIP.
I'm going to declare the public hearing open. Do we have anybody signed up to speak? All right, the public hearing is now closed. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 11?
Council consider resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application and execute a contract with the Federal Transit Administration to receive operating assistance funds for the Beaumont ZIP, and it comes with the recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 11?
Move to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 11. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 11, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, will you please take us into the work session?
Council to discuss the proposed 2025 bond election and process, and we'll get a presentation from Assistant City Manager June Ellis.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. This is a presentation on the city's proposed bond election and process. I actually gave this presentation to City Council, or a version of it, back in June of 2023. But for this particular one, I've added some updates to that particular presentation that I previously gave the council. So staff over the last year to actually over more than the last year, we go through the process of creating our community investment plan, which is our capital plan, and we bring that before City Council. And in the plan each year, we have projects that we propose to fund with general obligation bonds, which in order to issue those, we have to go to the citizens for their approval. So we're coming up on when we plan to have some of those projects move forward. And the city currently is recommending or proposing a bond election in November of 2025. So I'll get started with the first slide and talk about the Texas bond elections and how they work. A bond election in Texas allows voters to decide whether a local government may borrow money to fund a specific project for a specific purpose. And the state law really requires us to fund public improvements and other public for permanent public improvements and other public purposes. That's what the state law states in terms of bond election law for cities. So cities, counties, school districts use bond debt to finance new schools for school districts. For cities and counties, it's road, bridges, fire and police stations, parks, and other public infrastructure and facilities. So bond elections are allowable in the state of Texas. They are governed under Chapter 1251 and Chapter 1331 of the Texas Government Code. And the way they're paid back is typically through ad valorem tax. So they're paid back through our taxing authority, which is pledged against the debt. So it really is essentially a tax rate election, asking voters to approve an increase in property taxes. So bond elections are governed by the same laws that govern general elections. Some differences involve notice requirements and timing of elections. A couple of the things, or a few of the things that are required in the public notice that goes out to the citizens include a legal description of the bond proposal, purpose of the proposed debt, amount of proposed obligations, likely tax or interest rate increases, et cetera. So those are the types of things that we have to inform the voters before they have a chance to vote on bond propositions. The bond elections in Texas, they can only take place on a uniform election date, and in Texas, those dates are in May or November. So for Beaumont, we're proposing a bond election in November of 2025 for various projects, and we don't know what those projects are. A recommendation will be brought to City Council, and I'll get into that as I move through the presentation. So each item or project that's in a bond election, they're listed on separate bond propositions. For example, if we have park-related projects, there would be one proposition that voters could vote on for those park projects. Or if there are street projects, there would be a separate proposition that they would vote on. Same with facilities or public safety. There would be a number of propositions that voters could vote on separately to allow the city to move forward with the vote of yes or not move forward with the vote of no on each separate proposition. So a simple majority of votes, of ballots cast is sufficient to authorize the issuance of bonds. So this is just a little history on city bond elections here in Beaumont. I did some research with some staff over the past few months and even asked some staff members about the last time they witnessed a bond election here at the city of Beaumont, and there was only one city person who was here long enough. That was Chief White, who's been here over 40 years, because it's been 41 years since the city went to the voters with a bond election for projects. That was in March of 1983, and that was actually just for one proposition. That was just for drainage improvements at $16 million. And before 1983, there was a bond election held in 1980, April of 1980, and that was just for one proposition as well. That was for street improvements. And then before that, it was 50 years ago, it was 1974. But the most current one has been 41 years. And bond elections are routine in many cities. Some cities hold bond elections every 4 to 10 years, depending on the need for public improvements. For example, the city of Sugar Land, next month, they're having a bond election, total $350 million for their bond election that they're taking to their citizens. There are 5 total propositions for the city of Sugar Land's bond election. And the last time the city of Sugar Land had a bond election was just 5 years prior in November of 2019. So as you can see, in some cities, they have those elections with the citizens every 3, 4, 5 years. So Beaumont's bond election, we do have this proposed bond election in 2025. This would be the first of possibly a few bond elections in the coming years. If Beaumont gets on that pattern of going to the citizens every 5, 7, or 10 years, this could be a pattern of us taking these projects to the citizens, getting their approval, and then moving forward with those projects. So what you see there are the various city plans. Some we currently have in place, some are future plans. So what's done during a budget or a bond election is that the city looks at these long range visions of the city. What are our visions and goals for the future? And we have some plans and and reports that are already in place. For example, the community investment plan. That's the plan that's brought before City Council every year that has a 5-year range. We have the downtown plan as well. We're working on the Parks, Recreation, and Green Space Master Plan that should be completed in the spring, around March or April. We have our strategic plan. We have a pavement analysis reports for streets. We have a master drainage plan. So these are existing plans that would be used to determine which projects get moved forward for a bond election. And I included on here some other plans that need to be updated, or new plans such as our comprehensive plan, which that could be used for a future bond election if we don't, and we most likely won't have that completed before we go to the voters in November. Sidewalk master plan, we've discussed that here at the city. A trails master plan could be a future plan the city puts together. A thoroughfare master plan. So there are various plans that we have yet to start on that would be used in the future to help the city make decisions on future bond elections. Next slide. So in terms of city bond elections and financing, as you see in the city's community investment plan, capital improvement projects are funded through different means. So we fund some projects through certificates of obligations, revenue bonds, city operating funds, grants, etc. But a bond is a debt security issued by a local government and bought by investors in exchange for a promise of future repayment and interest. Very similar to a certificate of obligation, but a certificate of obligation doesn't require the election of the citizens. General obligation bonds are typically used to fund capital improvement projects that will serve the community, and these are the ones that are issued through the voter approval process. And they raise funds for projects, as I mentioned previously, such as roads, bridges, parks and trails, city facilities such as fire stations, police departments, recreation centers, public works facilities, etc. And the bonds and the dollars that we receive from a bond election, they can't be used for everyday operations. So they can't be used for paying city staff or paying for travel and training or buying office supplies. They have to be used for the construction or the renovation of a capital project. And again, GO bonds are backed by the full faith and credit of a city, which simply means a city is obligated to pay the bonds by pledging its ad valorem taxing power, and that's through property taxes. So each year we would adjust our property tax rate. Upon approval by the citizens, we would adjust our property tax rate in order to cover the debt service payment for that year. Next slide. So these are some of the parties involved in bond elections. So you have the government entity, which is the city. That includes the mayor, city council, city management, city staff. You have our FA, or financial advisor, that's involved in the process, our bond counsel. And then you have others that are involved in particular, and I'm going to get into more detail on the bond election facilitator within the next few slides. Election administrator, election consultant, we don't necessarily need those here for the upcoming bond election. We have our city clerk, who's an expert in those types of things, and the voters are also involved in the bond election process. Next slide. So the role of the bond counsel include, well, we currently have a bond counsel, so we don't need to hire a bond counsel for the city, but the bond counsel assists with planning and calling the bond election and drafting election documents, providing detailed instructions for posting and publication requirements, advise and assist with city election strategies, review informational materials, and pre-clear propositions with the Attorney General's office. Next slide, please. So this is a a key role that the city would need to fill in terms of moving forward with the bond election. We would have to hire a bond election facilitator. Some cities don't, but a city like ours that hadn't had a bond election in 41 years should consider investing in an election facilitator, which is essentially a consultant to help us walk through this process, because it is a very long and cumbersome process. So what we, the staff, would do is provide that bond election facilitator those master plans that I previously discussed, the community investment plan, the parks and recreation and green space master plan, our downtown plans, and all of our plans would essentially be shared with the bond election facilitator. That facilitator would analyze projects for a 2025 November bond election as identified by the Bond Advisory Committee. And what I want to note about the Bond Advisory Committee is that they have that role would be, the Bond Advisory Committee would be appointed by the City Council. So you would appoint the committee to bring to you recommendations for projects to go on a bond election issue or referendum. And I'll get more into the role of the Bond Advisory Committee later. But the bond election facilitator would also assist with project cost estimation in conjunction with city staff and the city consultant engineering firm, assist with development of timelines and phasing for construction projects. So they would have to have quite a bit of experience, technical knowledge from all of the projects and the various plans, tax implications for the community from the selection of the projects, funding recommendation on which projects would be better suited for the issuance of COs versus general obligation bonds. So they would have really a key role into helping make a decision on what's recommended before council. Next slide. So they also have a facilitation role as well. They will facilitate discussions with a bond advisory committee to work through the list of projects for recommendation to city council. They will develop meeting schedules and formats and content for efficient facilitation of the Bond Advisory Committee. They provide guidance for public input and engagement of project stakeholders. They will assist the Citizens Bond Advisory Committee in ranking and prioritizing the projects for recommendation to council. So once they get a list of projects and they narrow it down, they go through and they rank those projects. And that's what they bring to city council. So by the time you get their projects, I mean, they will have gone through a number of steps, met with staff, met with the bond election facilitator quite a bit, and narrowed down their recommendation of projects that they're proposing to city council to put on a bond referendum to the voters. They'll work closely with the city's financial advisor and bond counsel to analyze the potential tax rate impacts of a bond election. Next slide. So they have an additional role to marketing, so that they will serve in an advisory role with city staff to perform marketing duties. They'll assist staff with the development of a website to keep up with, to keep citizens updated and engaged on bond election, on the bond election and progress of the Bond Advisory Committee. They'll assist staff with the preparation of marketing materials and social media content to keep citizens updated as well on the bond election. And they have a role with City Council as well, where they will assist the advisory committee in presenting their list of recommendations to City Council for consideration of the November bond election. Next slide. And with input from the city's financial advisor, they will explain the property tax impacts from those presented scenarios based on the selected projects and sequencing. And they'll work with bond counsel on drafting the actual proposition ballot language. So this is a very tentative timeline for our bond election process. These dates are just estimated dates for the city. So the first is that the city would have to issue a request for proposal for a bond facilitation services consultant. So the city is about, I would say, a week to 2 weeks away from having a completed RFP ready to be issued. We've been working on that for the past 2 weeks. And if with the okay of City Council this evening, we could definitely move forward next week or within the next 2 weeks on issuing that RFP. Then City Council would award the contract for bond facilitation services with a consultant around January 2025. And what we would do at that point, when the city awards that contract, staff would come back to City Council to request a budget amendment to fund the services of a consultant, bond facilitation consultant. We didn't budget for this in the current budget, so therefore, we would come back before council to amend the budget. But one thing I do want to note is that the city can reimburse itself from the bond proceeds. If any of the propositions pass, the city is able to reimburse itself from those bond proceeds. And not just for the cost of the bond facilitation consultant, but also the cost of our bond counsel and our FA. Those are costs that are considered soft costs and preliminary costs that the city can recoup the cost on. So if we paid for all of those services out of the general fund, which we would, then later we could reimburse ourselves and receive those funds back into the general fund. Then number 3, City Council votes to appoint a bond advisory committee that's estimated around February of 2025. So that committee is determined by the City Council that would provide the best means of developing a bond proposal to be placed before the voters of the city. And again, the Bond Advisory Committee would bring a list of projects back before City Council for the ballot. Those can be infrastructure-related projects, public safety, parks, animal care facility, library, whatever comes out of that bond election committee, that would be brought back to City Council, and those projects would be recommended. And again, the Bond Advisory Committee is only an advisory committee. City Council can accept all of the recommendations by the Bond Advisory Committee, or City Council can make your own recommendation of projects that you would like to see on the ballot. So number 4, the Bond Advisory Committee meets with the bond facilitation consultant and city staff to determine the needs of the city and the cost of each project. So that time frame is estimated from February of 25 through April of 2025. Next slide, please. Then the advisory committee will continue to inform and seek input from the city through April of 2025, from April 2025 through June of 2025. Beaumont residents would be surveyed, so we would require the bond facilitator to include at least one survey to the citizens of Beaumont, so they would have a chance to engage in this entire process and make their voices heard through a survey. And we will also require at least one town hall to be held to receive feedback from the citizens of Beaumont as well. The number 6, the bond committee makes a recommendation to City Council for projects. We're estimating that to be anytime between June 2025 and August of 2025. And that could be the Bond Advisory Committee's final recommendation to City Council. Number 7, City Council has to call a bond election for the November election. We're estimating that to be at sometime in August of 2025. Bond elections, they must be called. There are certain deadlines for calling a bond election. So the City Council must call a bond election not more than 90 days or less than 78 days before the bond election, which, based on my estimation, that would be sometime in mid-August of 2025. The City Council would have to call a bond election if you choose to have a bond election in November of 2025. And then at that point, after City Council calls the bond election, number 8, the bond committee, City Council limited staff will attend community meetings to inform of the projects that will go on the ballot and the cost. So this is the city's opportunity, or this is when we begin our outreach efforts at that point. This is when the City Council and city staff can go out to community meetings and other events throughout the city to inform the public of the various projects. So the city's role is only to inform. We can't advocate, so we can't go and tell voters, please vote for this proposition or don't vote for it. Our role is to provide information to the citizens so that they can make their decision on any of the bond propositions. So the election would be held in November 2025. That is one of the uniform election dates. After the election, just like any election, the votes are cast, tabulated, canvassed, and then the city will determine which of the bond propositions were passed by the citizens of Beaumont. And then after the election is held, the bonds are issued at that point to fund the project. So as those projects, or as funds are needed for those projects, because they will be sequenced or scheduled out, they won't all be scheduled to start at the same time. The city will then go and issue the debt for those projects as needed. That's my last slide. Next slide is questions, comments, or feedback. Yes, sir.
Councilman Turner, then Councilman Durio.
All right, just a few questions just from listening. So you're stating that City Council would actually appoint a bond committee. So would all of us possibly get one appointment? How would that work?
I've seen it where City Council's got at least 2 apiece. I've seen advisory committees range from a total of like 12 to maybe 20. And in some cases, City Council members may get 2 votes apiece, and then the mayor may get 3. So it varies, but that's the choice of the City Council.
Okay, and the second question is, just for citizens watching with bond elections, if the citizens choose not to pass anything, that means nothing takes place, correct? It's just a opportunity for the citizens to have an opportunity to have weigh-in if they either want these projects or not, and the revenue being raised to do so.
That's absolutely correct. If the citizens do not vote in favor of the projects, then the projects don't move forward, and the city would have to wait at least 3 years before we can go back out to the voters for those projects again.
Okay, and my last one is, if we do get to the point where we do have the process and the survey takes place, I know sometimes surveys take place in person. With a city being this big of roughly 118,000 people or 16,000 people, I want to know if we can look at multiple options with one survey, whether it be digital as well as in person. I just want the community to have as much weigh in as possible with a decision that's important.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. I mean, we would, through the bond election facilitator, determine various ways to make it as easy as possible for citizens to be able to make their voices heard through the survey. So it could be digital, it could be they could come here to City Hall and pick up a survey, or, I mean, there may be, and we would try to plan for multiple ways for them to have access to a survey to complete.
Thank you, Mayor. That's it.
Mayor, one point of clarity. Each council member, each proposition goes on its own merit. So if Proposition 1 can pass and Proposition 2 might not, that doesn't mean Proposition 1 fails. So they each go on their own merit, whether they pass or fail. Right. State law, state legislature, pass legislation, and basically in clarity and truth in taxation and property tax laws that stated the language has to be separate for each proposition for it to go.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Councilman Durio?
Yeah, so about, how long does it take to pay back these bonds?
I would say about 20 years, to issue the debt and pay them back. So we would amortize it over 20 years.
So will it be like will the individual citizens see an increase in their taxes due to the bond?
It is possible because that's exactly what they're voting on for these projects. We would even provide them the estimated property tax increase. We would even give them a schedule for the next 10 to 15 years. This would be your property tax increase over the next 10 to 15 years. So they would know in advance. But sometimes, those estimates that we receive from our financial advisor can change. Let's say the values go up because it's an estimate. It's a one-time snapshot. But if the values rise, there may not even be a need for a tax rate increase if circumstances present itself in a favorable way with regard to tax values of properties in the city.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Felshaw?
Mr. Ellis, the difference between the certificates of obligation and bonds, COs do not require a vote on the part of the citizens. The bonds do. And so by going out before the citizens with the project and asking them to vote on this is a clear way for us to be democratic and ask them for their approval on a project, for them to support that. That's their voice to say yes or no, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
And so what would keep a city from doing certificates of obligation? Are they're typically reserved for like emergency moments, smaller amounts, but it's not necessarily stated that way in Texas law, is it?
It's not stated that way, and that was the original intention. With a general obligation bond, there's, as we're proposing now, it's a long process. I mean, you have to, put things on the ballot by a certain time. You have to inform the public. So for certificates of obligation, the idea was that certain things are of an emergency need. So the state allowed cities to go through the CO process for those emergency needs, but
they can be, they've been controversial, I believe.
They've been very controversial, and this next legislative session, it's possible that the state may clamp down a little bit more on the issuance of CO.
But I just wanted to bring some clarity that going out before the citizens with the bond election is our way of saying we do not want to move forward with these projects without your support.
Absolutely, that's what it says.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, would you take us into the next work session?
Council to discuss the downtown proactive code enforcement update. Ms. Ingham. Or Bo. All right.
I'll have my building officials present. Bo Hansen, deputy building official, and Boyd Meyer is also here, building official.
Well, good evening. Thanks for having me here. This evening, I'd like to share a quick update regarding progress in the proactive downtown code enforcement program. If we could go to the next slide, perfect. We'll start with the Gilbert Building, and these are all going to be slides that you guys have seen before, but there are two items on this one I'd like to draw your attention to tonight. First is the progress report from our office. Condition 2 of the ordinance from the past council hearing was to submit a progress report to the building official. Though we have not received a written report, we have been in regular contact with the engineer and the contractors. As of today, the first floor has been completely cleared by the demolition company, and the scaffolding and shoring company has mobilized and is currently preparing the upper floors for the demolition company to complete their entire demo safely, which will include the roof. The next item I want to draw your attention to is, if you go back to the Gilbert Building slide, is set to happen on November 18th. This is where the owner of the building will be deciding to proceed with the prescribed repairs from the engineering firm. Once that decision to proceed is made, we expect to see the plan submitted to our office for review. Next slide, please. So,
Mr. Hanson,
yes, sir.
when I drove by the Gilbert Building on my way home the other day, I saw a bunch of poles inside the Gilbert Building. Is that the structures that you're talking about he's using to support?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so y'all have looked at that and all that's good?
We are getting reports regularly on that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. So in this slide, you're looking at today's update for all tagged properties within our sweep. As a quick reminder, at this point, each building is going to fall into one of four categories. We have those that are in the work program, where the owner is responsive and committed to fixing in an agreement in an agreed upon time. Those that are filed in court, where the owner is not responsive, and so we are pursuing legal action. Or permits have been pulled, where they are actually pulling construction permits for the necessary repairs that we've outlined. And then lastly, those that are repaired, and that's where all the unsafe violations have been, they're no longer a hazard. So you can see on this slide, just to walk through it quickly, we have 9 in the work program, 6 that have been repaired entirely, 2 that have active construction permits, and 10 are currently filed in court. Next slide. So these next 3 slides are, again, slides you guys have seen, but just updated numbers, the breakdown of each address and the status it has been in every day since we have originally tagged it. Here you see phase 1, which began on March 26th. And next slide. Here's phase 2, which began on April 16th. And you can see a newly compliant building in 441 Orleans. And then next slide. Phase 3, which has 3 newly compliant buildings from our last update with you guys. And I'm going to pause here if you have any questions on any of these addresses in particular. Otherwise, the next slide has a side-by-side overview of where we are as a whole. So this is compared to my last report to you all that I provided on September 17th. Again, we have 2 more that have been complianced out in total, and a couple have been added to our court filings due to either a work program expiring or we were monitoring for a unique situation, and that allowance of time has expired. And the next slide, please. So if you have any other questions or comments, I'll gladly take a look at them with you. Otherwise, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
All I would like to add on the Gilbert Building slide, and I apologize, my building officials have been out at conference all last week, but we did receive correspondence from the property owner, or the engineering firm on behalf of the property owner, a progress report or the update of their schedule, which is showing progress as it relates to the project. So I just wanted to correct that.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to move into council member comments. And I will start with Councilman Neal. Councilman Samuel.
No comment.
Councilman Felshaw.
No comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Turner.
Yeah, just thank you to Chris Durio for reaching out to all council members and asking us to wear our pink, in reference to Breast Cancer Awareness Month appreciation as council. So I thank you for bringing that to the council.
Councilman Getz.
No comment.
Councilman Durio.
Quick comment, my train question. Bart, Ms. Public Works Director Bart Kowak, for the public, can you please explain again the extra light at Washington and 11? I get a lot of calls and complaints about that every day.
Yes, sir. So that light was taken out of service during the Washington Street construction. When we got to the end of the Washington Street construction, the Federal Railroad Administration had changed the rules on preemption of signals due to trains crossing. So that particular intersection has a rail crossing on 11th Street and it has a rail crossing on Washington in fairly close proximity to the light. They changed the rules on how close those rails are to the signal to require a signal before the light, before the rail. So what the purpose of the signal is to go ahead and turn the signal before the rail red, leave the signal at Washington and 11th green, and clear the box, so to speak, between the rail and the Washington and 11th crossing itself. So to give it enough time to clear all the traffic out so there's no traffic between the rail crossing and the actual signal at Washington and 11th. There's no other signal in the city of Beaumont that meets those particular requirements. So Washington 11th will be the only one that has that pre-signal before the main signal.
So is this on a timer or something? Because I've been there and other people have told me that they're there and both of those lights are red at the same time.
They can be red at the same time for a period, but the light before the rail should turn red first. In the event a rail train's there that has a signal preemption, that light before the rail will turn red first, and then it'll clear all the traffic out before the signal, and then the other one will turn red. So there'll be a period of time where both of them are red at the same time.
And this was something that was required by the Railroad Association?
Yes, sir. It was rules changes put in place during the construction project. Those rules are then implemented by TxDOT within our state. So when we went to put the preemption back in place, that's when they required the change.
Okay. Councilman Turner, did you get all that? You said on Facebook, I don't know, y'all need to ask Councilman Durio.
Hey, I just didn't want to overstep in your ward. I wanted to give you an opportunity to address it first.
I appreciate that.
And I'll make sure we find this clip and go post it on that same thread.
Thank you. Thank you. Public Work.
You're welcome.
Public Work Director Bart Kowak.
Madam City Attorney.
Just one comment. Thank you to Councilman Durio for making me wear pink today. You know that's not my color, but anything for you.
I did want to go back to the quiet zone conversation for 1 minute. We have put out information on the quiet zone, where we're at with it. We've posted that on our webpage for Railroad Quiet Zone on the website. And then Tracy Kinnick has been gracious in pushing that out on social media, providing a link back to the website. We're trying to push as fast as we can, and whenever we have updates, we will put them back on that page so that citizens can keep in touch with where we're at in that process.
Thank you, sir.
Just like to thank Councilman Durio for the text. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to thank Councilman Durio as well for the late night text. And today I actually went to Dillard's and bought this pink tie, so I have it for next year and the years after.
Yeah.
I think we'll all be in faded pink and faded red every October.
Next time I want to text on pink. The next downtown code sweep update will be due back December 17th meeting. So that's when we'll be back, but no other updates other than that.
I just want to real quick give condolences to the family of former council member Calvin Williams. Passed away, I think on, was it Saturday morning? Saturday morning at the 90 years of age. Just want to give condolences to his family.
Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to ask all city employees to stand. All city employees. I want y'all to join me in giving them a hand for the work that they do. We appreciate what you do. Thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you.
And thank you to all the residents that are still here at 7:13 tonight. And as well, I want to, Chief Oknachek will be speaking at Rotary tomorrow. For those that would like to hear that, that is at the MCM Elegante. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Wish the city had a table where we can go all at one time.